I'd like to begin with just getting sort of your reaction to what we got and what kind of government you think we're going to get out of the Netherlands.
Yeah, well, obviously it's still very much up in the air what we will get. We saw quite some shifts already since the exit polls last night. The first question is who will become the biggest party? We see far-right PVV governing in the last coalition, stepping out, being losing quite some seats. Important signal also for the rest of Europe, I think. And again, opposite of that, we see D66, Liberal Progressive Party, gaining quite some seats. So it's up in the air who will become the biggest party.
But likely, I think the bottom line is we're going to get a much more centrist government than we had before. How do you expect the markets to sort of interpret that?
Yes, well, I guess a more centrist-oriented government is indeed one of the possible, more feasible coalitions that we expect. That will be a good thing for the Netherlands, I think. We have an economy which has performed quite well, outperformed European peers, but is constrained domestically quite a bit. So a more pragmatic government which can give some policy certainty in the face of international policy uncertainty would be very much welcomed, at least domestically, but also for companies performing here.
And you're also expecting a more constructive relationship with the European Union. Express to me what you think a more constructive relationship with the European Union looks like, particularly on this issue of joint debt, which we've seen a massive evolution of, and particularly some of these parties that are going to compose this government over the last few months.
Yeah, it's a really good point. It's also a really interesting point to look out for in the coalition negotiations, which is the process that follows next. We have seen traditionally skeptical parties, such as the Christian Democratic CDA, shift their position on Eurobonds quite a bit, from being against towards at least open the door for it under strict conditions. That has obviously everything to do with defense and the need to ramp up defense spending, not only to adhere to the NATO target, but also to face existential threats on the east side. So that is definitely a shift that we will see, and that we expect a more constructive European, more constructive Dutch coalition going forward.
Yeah, and you're an economist, but in 2025 economists are wading further and further into geopolitics, corporate strategy, all of these sorts of things, namely with this issue that we've seen out of the Netherlands, absolutely fascinating, with the government sort of suddenly taking possession of Nexperia from a Chinese owner. This issue is sort of totally unresolved, and I won't ask you to comment specifically on that, but I'd like to get your perspective on what these sort of the downstream effects of that are. For Dutch business, does it sort of lose confidence, but also for this government, and sort of changing. Every politician I speak to says the Europeans have been way too naive on this question of China.
Yes, well, this is obviously a very important thing. If we zoom out a bit, the Dutch economy, or the Netherlands, is a small open economy. So what happens geopolitically affects us disproportionately. So it's also a warning sign there in that respect. What we see is that the semiconductor sector has become a flashpoint in US-China relationships. Obviously, the Netherlands risks becoming a major player in that, because of ASML on the one hand, but now also because of Nexperia. It also is a bit of a stone in the pond, I have to say, because the previous government in the Beethoven project tried to give more of a stable climate, more investments in the semiconductor sector to really amplify this point of policy predictability. And now they threw a stone in the pond because of the Nexperia case. So it's interesting to watch out how the next government is gonna look into this.